And we've been talking about what not to do in a relationship. We've been talking about myths, blowing those things up. We've been talking about your bad spirit, those things that will contaminate a relationship and drag it down. And you heard me say, relationships are ships and ships go down. But now it's time to start talking about what to do. I've cautioned you about what not to do, but anybody can say what not to do. Anybody can criticize. Anybody can find fault. But what do you do? How do you make your relationship sing? As we've talked about doing a reality check on your relationship, one of the key things I've said is that you either contribute to or contaminate your relationship. There is no neutrality. And I hope what you've done, rather than just listen to me ramble on here, is really stop and ask yourself some questions. Because my intention has been to be thought-provoking here. When you watch DrPhil, I'm talking to people, I'm talking to couples, I'm talking to families, I'm talking to individuals about their specific story. And I really hope that when I do that, you're able to take something away from those stories that you can use in your own life. But here in Relationship Reality Check, I've set the stories to the side, and I'm talking to you specifically about things that you can plug in to your own life and your own relationship. I hope it's been thought-provoking to the extent that when you come away, you've asked yourself, is the bad spirit that we've talked about active in my life? Has my bad spirit taken me over? When I say you either contribute to or contaminate your relationship, I hope you step back and say, which is it for me? Am I a contributor? Do I bring good things to the relationship, or am I a contaminator? I've got luggage, I've got baggage, I've got a history that puts a chip on my shoulder, and I bring it to the relationship and contaminate with it. I do hope you ask yourself that, because you've heard me say you cannot change what you do not acknowledge. That's life law number 4. You cannot change what you do not acknowledge. If you're a contaminator, you can't stop contaminating if you don't acknowledge that you're a contaminator, and you cannot stop contaminating if you don't start contributing. Now think about what I just said. You've heard me say that you don't break habits, you actually replace one behavior with a new behavior that's incompatible with the one you don't want. And that's the same thing about contaminating. If you want to stop contaminating your relationship, then start contributing to your relationship, because that's a whole new set of behaviors that is inconsistent, incompatible with contaminating it. If you're doing positive things that contribute to your relationship, then you can't be contaminating it. And what I'm telling you today, what I'm turning to today in Relationship Reality Check, how much fun are you to live with, is it's time to get back to you. Have you stopped lately and asked yourself, do you know why your partner, your spouse, your husband, your wife, whatever it may be, fell in love with you to begin with? Stop and think about that. Now, for me, I met Robin 48 years ago. 48 years ago. That's a long time. I mean, gas was like 30 cents a gallon. Think about that. That's how long ago that was. And it does a body good to turn back the clock and think, why did somebody choose you for their life partner? If it was 48 years ago, 30 years ago, 2 years ago, why did they choose you? What was it about you that lit them up? What was it about you that made them say, wow, I want to be with this person? And all false humility aside, I want you to get out a piece of paper and write down why your partner chose to spend the rest of their life with you. What was it? And be realistic about it. Like I say, all false humility aside. For me, it wasn't that she loved running her fingers through my hair. I know that for damn sure, because I was bald then just like I am now. But what was it? Were you fun? Did you make your partner feel safe? Did you make your partner feel special? Did you make your partner feel valued? Did you make your partner feel like they were a worthy, valid human being? Were you interesting? Were you intriguing? What was it that made your partner fall in love with you? If you can't answer that question, then you need to hit pause And stop listening to me until you can answer that question. Really think about it. And there's a reason I want you to think about it. I want you to get back to you. If you can't figure out why she fell in love with you, why he fell in love with you to begin with, then you don't have an anchor point. You don't have anything to get back to. And I want you to ask yourself, can I get back to me? Can I get back to the me that my partner fell in love with? And you may think, well, my partner's still in love with me. Dr. Phil, you're assuming that I'm in the ditch here. No, I'm not. But nobody is above improvement. Maybe your relationship is in the ditch. Maybe that's why you're listening to this series that I've put together. Maybe it's just gone stale. Maybe you've just kind of become roommates and you take each other for granted and the sizzle's gone. You know, I did say there was a difference between falling in love and being in love. There's a difference between getting butterflies in your stomach every time the person walks in the room and a comfortable love that you feel safe and secure in. Maybe you don't have either one of those. Maybe it's just roommates and not very good ones. Maybe it's actually deteriorated into open hostility. Maybe you blame each other for your position in life. I don't know your particular situation, but I do know this. I've never met a couple that couldn't improve. So yeah, I'm asking you, can you get back to you? Can you get back to the you that your partner fell in love with? Have you lost yourself? Have you gotten so caught up in being a husband or wife, a boyfriend or girlfriend, a partner, half of a couple, that you lost all of who you are? Because if you can't be 100% of who you are and be half of a couple at the same time, something's gone wrong. You should be able to be an individual and still be half of a couple. If you lose your individuality, the price is too high. The relationship is dysfunctional. You've got to reclaim who you are. And that's who your partner fell in love with. And you can say, well, I got that beat out of me. My partner took that away from me. Well, no, they didn't. I'll get to that in a minute. But they didn't fall in love with who you are now. They fell in love with who you were then. So don't we need to get back to that? Robin and I've joked sometimes. She'll say, I wish you were more sensitive, or I wish you were more emotional. And I said, well, you married a linebacker. Doesn't mean I can't work to be those things, but you kind of knew who I was when you married me. I was pretty cerebral and had a pretty violent job at the time. I mean, that's who I was and what I did. I mean, I was a jock. I was a jock then. I'm a jock now. I mean, it's 48 years later and I do sports every day, 7 days a week. I did them then. I do them now. It's who I am. And she has been so supportive in me being who I am. She really has not tried to change me into being who she might at different times think she wishes I was. Now, look, that doesn't mean you can't modify yourself. You can't grow. You can't evolve. Certainly you can. My God, we've been married 43 years. That has not been 1 year 43 times over. We've been married a second year, a third year, a fourth year, a fifth year, and the fifth year wasn't like the first year, and the 10th year wasn't like the fifth year. We have evolved. You don't ever want to have 1 year's experience 43 times. You want each year to build on the one before. So of course you evolve, but you never lose your roots. You never lose your identity. And when I say get back to you, I want you to make a commitment to yourself that you're going to live with integrity, honesty, compassion, and you're going to do it in a way that you generate enthusiasm, that you're your own best friend. Now, your partner's going to be your best friend as well, but you got to be a good friend to yourself. I always tell people, you're the easiest person to tell yourself no. You're the easiest person to say no to. You can make a dentist appointment. You can make an appointment to meet somebody for lunch. You can make an appointment to see a therapist. You can make an appointment to do 10 different things. And when it comes time to have me time, you've got 5 things to do that day. Time runs short. Who's the easiest person to cancel on? You. You're the easiest person to cancel on, right? It's easier to cancel on yourself than it is to call the dentist and say, I'm not coming. It's easier to tell yourself, well, I'll just do this tomorrow, instead of calling your therapist and say, I'm not coming, or calling your mother and say, I'm not going to come over and see you. It's easier to tell yourself no. It shouldn't be, but it is. because then you avoid confrontation. And what I'm saying is if you're your own best friend, then you won't cancel on you. You wouldn't cancel lunch with your best friend if they were counting on it. And if you're your own best friend, then you wouldn't cancel on you. You wouldn't cancel things that are important to you. You wouldn't settle for less. You wouldn't settle for living with less than integrity and honesty and compassion and enthusiasm. So we talked about the bad spirit. I want to talk about the good spirit. I want to talk about the things that you can do to make your relationship better. And the first one is to own your relationship. Own your relationship. You are not a victim. You can say, well, I'm married to a jerk. I'm in a relationship with somebody that's just impossible. I'm a victim here. DrPhil, you don't know this person. They're impossible. They're the most miserable human being on the face of the earth. This is ground zero for miserable. I'm married to the worst person in the world. They find something wrong with everything. Well, okay, that's your victim story. But you've got to own that relationship. You created this relationship. You picked this person. And whatever is going on in this relationship, you either elicited it, maintain it, or allow it. You're not a victim. You either elicit, maintain, or allow what's going on in your relationship. You are the architect of your thoughts, your thought patterns, your behaviors. Whatever your partner's bad habits are, you need to ask yourself, what do you do to pay them off for that? If they are constantly late, if you're going somewhere, you're meeting someone for dinner, or you have a reservation somewhere, and they are chronically late. I mean, it's a fight every time. You make a reservation somewhere, you're going to be there at 7:30, and 7:30, you're ready to go, and they're not, and you leave at 8:15 every time, and so you are mad every time, you are arguing every time. You need to ask yourself what you're doing to elicit, maintain, or allow that behavior, because you are not a victim. You are doing something to enable that behavior. You are paying them off for that behavior. So instead of asking yourself, what is wrong with them that they do this, you need to ask yourself, what am I doing to reinforce this behavior on their part? Look at your role. Now you may say, look, why are you blaming this on me? I'm not the one that's late. I'm not blaming it on you. I'm saying you're the only one you have control over. You're the only one that you have input to. You need to own your relationship. Take off the victim hat, put it on the shelf, and become an owner of your relationship. If your partner is just unplugged, what are you doing that elicits, maintains, or allows that? How are you paying them off for being unplugged? Are you allowing them to be lazy? Are you failing to engage? Have you given up? What are you doing to enable that behavior? Enable means I make it easier for them to do something by my conduct. Own your relationship. You're not a victim. What are you doing to elicit that behavior? What are you doing to maintain it? What are you doing to allow it? Take control. Confront the situation. Own your relationship. Quit blaming your partner for it and own it. If you're so smart, if you're so right, then why can't you fix it? You can. You can fix it by owning it.